I'm Dr. Neil Payne.
And I'm Kirk Lyons, and this is All Things Confederate.
Kirk, we've had a lot going on in the Confederation these days, haven't we?
Boy, we have. It's been a whirlwind week here.
It's a good thing we've got more staff now. We can kind of split our efforts.
That's right.
And go in different directions. We had the Saturday we were at the North Carolina the division reunion.
In High Point, North Carolina.
North Carolina, that's right. And Kirk was unanimously elected brigade commander for the Southern Highlands Brigade.
Watch out, all you people that watch us. Today, Western North Carolina. Tomorrow, the Confederation. You never know. Napoleon started as a corporal, so...
And don't let the SPLC know.
That's right.
They have objections. But
I've already contacted all 6 camps in the brigade, and we'll do our best to make this a model brigade.
We need to mobilize everybody that is a Southerner, basically, because the attacks have been coming fast and furious. We have a very interesting letter to read to you later on. But first of all, we'll talk about the Wirtz Memorial.
Right. HK and Tom Willis, our new executive director, traveled up to be with our hero, Father Alistair Anderson, who we just recently awarded the Baz Childress Award for Lifetime Achievement. And boy, nobody's done more for the cause than Father Alistair, and a very dear friend of the SLRC. And
a great man.
He is. They went up there, and HK gave the dedicatory speech at the Wirtz Memorial, and Tom said a few words. And so it was kind of meeting and greeting, and a beautiful day overlooking the capital of the United States. And very appropriate to remember Heinrich Wirtz, who was a major in the Confederate Army and was hanged as the scapegoat for what happened in the prisons during the war between the states. Andersonville Prison, the South was falling apart. Their rail system was falling apart. They couldn't feed prisoners. And Grant stopped the prisoner exchange that had enabled prison camps to be emptied.
Yeah, and wouldn't even let medicine come across the lines.
Right. So these men died not because of Henry Wirtz, but because Grant wouldn't exchange troops, while Confederate men in northern prisons, where they had ample provisions to take care of prisoners, let them starve and suffer. So it was a bad situation all around, and Henry Wirtz was the first one sacrificed after the war.
I also found it interesting that the grave of Mary Surratt is also in that cemetery.
Oh,
yeah, another victim of Yankee justice.
Right. If you haven't seen the recent movie that Robert Redford did on Conspirator, it's an excellent movie. And gets most of the story right. The story's worse than he even portrayed it. Right. But Robert Redford was trying to make a statement on the nature of military tribunals, which I don't even know why they have them, because you're always found guilty. There's no due process. They might as well just say, well, we're going to put you up against a wall and shoot you, because that's what military tribunals are. They're not to find justice, they're to find guilt. And they've almost always been that way.
They're very successful.
And why this country tolerates them for a minute as a free people is beyond me. That's what monarchies and police states and dictatorships do. But it's a great movie. You should watch it. It take your family. It's a very educational movie, and they get most of the story right. So that's Tom and HK, and at the reunion in High Point, the division unanimously passed several important resolutions. One was to the Museum of the Confederacy, saying we're going to boycott you until you put the national flags of the Confederacy in front of your museum that you just opened at Appomattox.
I hope it sends a message to them that people like us are not happy with them and are not going to be supporting them, and they just can go whistle to Yankee land for their support, I guess.
Well, and this was in response to what was perceived as rather the tepid response of the National SCV, saying, oh, why can't we all come to Jesus and get along? It's kind of like a Rodney King resolution. But the North Carolina Division said, no, this needs to be a stronger statement. We need to stand up as a division and say, you're not getting a dime of our money until you put our national flags in front of that museum. And that's that.
Right.
So very, very good to North Carolina Division. They also passed a resolution supporting the division's decision to file a lawsuit in the Reidsville Monument case. And that was an important decision because, reluctantly, the SCD was forced to sue the United Daughters of the Confederacy, the North Carolina Division. And it's because the UDC has colluded with the city of Reidsville in keeping this monument off of where it's been for the last 100 years, and colludes in the fact that the UDC does not own that monument. They gave it to the city.
That's right.
And I guess they greedily wanted it back so they can hide it in a cemetery instead of being in the center of town.
And there's plenty of sentiment at the meeting that this isn't an attack on the daughters per se. That we support the members of the United Daughters of the Confederacy, but some of your leaders have got to go, especially if they're colluding, if they're committing insurance fraud, basically, in their application for the
$90,000 to repair the monument, but they got $108,000.
Right.
So $18,000 of payola from the.
And there was an email saying, we need to make sure that the pedestal is said to be damaged too, so we can up the amount of recovery. That. And there wasn't any damage to the pedestal, except that it needed to be stabilized, put back where it was. But the statue is what was damaged, and that's shameful activity.
Absolutely.
And then for the national office to back up the state, the president. What's going on with that organization?
You ladies out there that support us, we need y'all to do your bit in your organization to kind of clean house. You need to find out what's happening.
Get a broom.
And listen outside of the UDC information channel as to what's going on. Because a lot of these ladies are supporting the North Carolina Division president because the only thing they've heard is from her. Right. And she's sitting there spinning a tale.
Well, like the Bible says, your own case sounds real good until somebody comes along and asks questions.
Now, the good thing in what happened in Reidsville is that the Southern Legal Resource Center has awarded a Bass Children's Heritage Medal to Jamie Funkhauser, who has faithfully been standing there at that monument site in Reidsville with a Confederate flag in Confederate uniform. He's a very fine young man. We got to visit with him a bit at the reunion and very impressed with him. And we're very happy for him to have this award to encourage him. And he's actually receiving grief. They have changed and moved things in the monument circle so that there's very little right-of-way. And they're harassing him. Right. He gets to stand on a little 6-inch square. And I guess if he steps out of that, they're going to do something, maybe arrest him.
He said that the city council was considering some kind of resolution to keep him from being there.
And we told him, bring it on.
Yeah, do that.
Like they need more controversy in Reidsville, but that puts meat on the SLRC's bones because when tyrants do things like that, that's how you make law. They've got to be outrageous so that we can make law that'll protect the rights of the Confederate community and all Americans. And so go ahead, City of Reidsville, do your best.
Fortunately, they're not supported by the local people of Reidsville. Jamie says that he can't count how many people honk and wave and support what he's doing, and even the police officers themselves support him on their off-duty time.
That's right. Well, and also going on, we had the Hoods Texas Brigade dedication at the Gaines Mill battlefield. The Richmond Battlefield Association apparently said you can't say the salute to the Confederate flag at a ceremony on our land. So some businessmen in Texas got together and hired an airplane, and they flew over the dedication with a large banner and a Confederate flag that says, "I salute the Confederate flag." And I'm sure that our wizard of media, Nathaniel, can figure out a way to graft that video, at least a picture, onto this part of the program. But it was a successful thing. The Virginia flaggers supported it, and so there was lots of Confederate flags there. And so the salute to the Confederate flag was done, and they're not saying it there made no difference because we had it flying overhead for an hour, and a lot of people in Richmond were talking about it.
Well, we don't want to run out of time before we tell what we got from Texas.
We have got a lot of the Texas problem. You recall the Texas Historical Commission turned down and nullified the application of the Texas Division Sons of Confederate Veterans to put a historical marker on the Capitol Plaza, and marking the fact that the Supreme Court building is a memorial to Texans that served the Confederacy. It's the largest Confederate memorial in the world. And we simply wanted to tell the story that all of the state office buildings in downtown Austin around the Capitol were built with money from the Confederate Pension Fund. And that to get the money, they passed a constitutional amendment to transfer the money from the Confederate Pension Fund to the state building fund, and that the first building built out of that money would be dedicated to Texans that served the Confederacy. And by the 1950s, you know, most of the veterans and widows were dead. Not very many left, plenty of money, but it needed a constitutional amendment. And the deal was, you can have the money, but you got to build a memorial. The first building is dedicated as a memorial. And that's all the marker wanted to say. Well, 12 legislators who all coincidentally happen to be black and members of the Black Legislative Caucus raised a stink about it and wrote a letter and got our application scotched on faulty grounds, as it turns out. We found the smoking gun, but the 12 we filed an open records request act to all of these legislators to find out what they had, and they were very brazen and very happy to cooperate. Good. And one of them, Garnet Coleman, wrote a letter to me, and I'd like to share it with you. Dear Mr. Lyons, this letter is in response to your Texas Public Information Act request dated May the 9th, 2012. Actually, it says 201. Attached is information responsive to your request. In all honesty, I wish that I had more documents to provide. The actions and comments of you and groups like the Sons of Confederate Veterans are a perpetuation of hate. Well, I didn't know that about us. We might have to do some soul searching here.
De facto hate, man.
Absolutely. Paying homage to those who wanted to keep my ancestors as property sickens me to my core, and I will continue to do everything in my power to stomp out your message. I welcome the opportunity to debate your archaic and backward views. Oh, I didn't know he knew what our views were. Yeah. I look forward to the day when your group is but an embarrassing footnote to our state's history. If you would like to discuss this matter further, contact me. Well, Representative Coleman, we do want to have more information and dialogue with you about this. As a matter of fact, we'll challenge you to a debate at any place and time of your choosing.
And I challenge anybody to produce anything that we have said or the SCV has said that constitute as much hatred as comes across in that letter there. That's the ravings of a genocidal maniac.
And as you might have, if we told you in a previous show, the Texas Historical Commission ditched our application because they said that the site where we wanted the marker was within the purview of the State Preservation Board. Now, the State Preservation Board was set up to be the historical commission for the Capitol complex. And it's very narrowly defined, the area that is under their purview. So if you want to put a marker in an area that's controlled by the State Preservation Board, then you have to either get their permission or the permission of the legislature to put up a monument. So they said the area where we wanted our historical marker for the Supreme Court building was in that area. And we knew that was wrong because we don't just, we don't have a romper room view of the law. We actually go and research this stuff, and we found that it was an area that was not covered by the State Preservation Board. They said it was, and threw our application in the trash. We're going to be asking for reinstatement because we found the smoking gun we always knew was there. In 2004, Governor Bill Daniel, who was chairman of the Texas State Bar Historical Committee, had Rob Jones, an attorney for the land office, write to the State Preservation Board and say, we need your permission because you say that the area where we want our marker is in the State Preservation Board, the Capitol complex. We need your permission to either put the marker there or give us a friendly kudo to the legislature so we can pass legislation that would allow us to put a historical marker there. And the executive director, Gay Poland, wrote this letter back regarding that request to put the historical marker there.
And that's in 2004.
2004. Pursuant to your request on behalf of the History and Preservation Committee of the State Bar of Texas for an agency response regarding the placement of an official Texas historical marker on the Capitol grounds, I have directed my staff to research and answer. So this is a staff research project. Your application for such a marker to the Texas Historical Commission specifies that the marker will be placed about 50 feet from the east entrance to the Supreme Court building. The application also requires permission of the owner for marker placement by signature of the owner. And that's what they were asking of the State Preservation Board. Based on blueprint measurements, the Capitol grounds begin 61 feet from the face of the Supreme Court building. Therefore, the State Preservation Board has no jurisdiction and cannot be considered the owner of the property. Sincerely, Gabe Poland, Executive Director. So that's the law. We had every right to have our application considered. It was wrongful for them to throw it in the trash because on the very same issue for the very same marker 7 years before, they told Governor Bill Daniel, chairman of that committee, that there was no problem. So like any impediment been created since then? Not that we know of. So we'll be writing to have our application reinstated.
Very good.
Well, we've gone over, but this was an interesting program. We're glad you could join us. Become a member, support our work, and
join us next week.
That's right.